here at KSMO Radio, 1340 AM, 95.7 FM, online at KSMOradio.com, and we're also streaming on our KSMO Stream Facebook page. We have Presiding Commissioner Darrell Skiles with us. It is the third Friday of the month, and Darrell, you're looking spry, ready to go. You ready for autumn to come in?
What a beautiful, beautiful September morning it is out there. Been a real run out from this year here this last week or so, hasn't it? Beautiful, beautiful time. Is there any place in the world any better to be right now than right here in Salem, Dent County, and the Ozarks? Fantastic.
This is the kind of weather you dream about, but next week we're going to go back into a little bit warmer.
You know, when God made the rest of the world, he was just practicing, and then he made Dent County and the Ozarks. Yep.
He said, where should I pick?
He got
right there.
Worked out all the kinks. Yes, sir.
Kind of
yes,
put
sir.
his finger right in the middle of the
Yep.
and there it was.
There it is. Yes, sir.
Very good. Well, we're glad to have Darrell along with us. We've got probably a lot of things to talk about. We had some long meetings this past week, and you were attending a lot of different things yourself. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. If we should, you want to talk about money first, or you want to talk about meetings first, or what would you like to talk about?
I don't care. You know, we can just kind of close our eyes and point somewhere. There's been quite a bit going on, and
that's what I mean.
We'll go through this. I've got a couple of things I've got to get to this morning. So
maybe we should just do one thing that really isn't just county business, but it's a great asset to our community, and that's construction trades.
Yeah.
Building and stuff, and we are very proud to say that they raised enough money. They have $438,000 in the bank by yesterday, and they had $448,005.
Right. So and let's back up and give for those listening, going, what the heck are you talking about?
We got it.
Right. So a process was started a couple of years ago to try to build a new building trades classroom along with technology classroom. And the building trades is where the kids come in and they study how to do carpenter work and all these different things and the tools to use. And then they actually go out on site and have places where in homes and places where they work and actually put what they're learning to practical use, real practical use. But they needed a better dedicated classroom to do this. The school was able to apply through the city for, as I understand it, Stan, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm pulling bits and pieces around. But at any rate, they did apply for and get a $500,000 CDBG grant, provided could meet local match, and that match being about $450,000 roughly. And they had to do that, and they were able to then get what they call youth opportunity tax credits that would be available to anyone who would want to contribute to that project. 50% of the money they contribute then would go to direct tax credits from the state of Missouri. Only, yes. So, in any way, so that process started a year or two ago, a couple of years ago maybe. But at any rate, it kind of languished, and there wasn't a whole lot really done on it until actually Todd Knerk. You got to give Todd Knerk and Sherman Odom credit for realizing then this thing, it actually terminated. They had to have the money raised for sure, the deadline by the end of September, but they needed it
raised by September 15th.
Yeah, they needed it in the bank though by September 15th, and then the deadline. So at any rate, they were about to lose the $500,000 that was from the grant that they had. CDBG grant, if they didn't get the money raised. Todd Knerk and Sherman Odom, they went to work on that there and making sure people were aware and explaining what was going on. And along with the Hester family, who have family roots in this area with the Durbins. Miss Hester was formerly Lisa Durbin here in Salem, and her family, she went to high school here, and they had a keen interest in in helping education and promote education, and especially this building trades thing, because there's not every kid is destined to go to college and things, and even kids that go to college, if they can go through building trades and learn the building trades thing, and they can actually have a lot better chance of even working their way through college and come out of college without near as much debt and things.
Always a need for contractors.
You just can't. And I went to VOAG, vocational agriculture, and we learned a lot of things in VOAG that I still use to this day. These kids in building trades, they take a lot of pride in that. And the staff at the school that work with the building trades students take tremendous pride in their students and the work that they do in the community and in that classroom, the technology part of the thing as well. It all works together. So these folks had really invested a lot of time, the Hesters and then Sherman Odom come along and Todd Knurk in promoting this thing went around, and they needed to get this money raised. So they were down to about needing finally about $30,000 left, and they come to the commission to see if there's anything we could do using ARPA funds, and the commission did approve putting $25,000 of ARPA funds towards that. And I talked to Sherman Odom later that afternoon, and they had gotten the rest, pretty much obligations for the rest of it, promises or whatever you want to call it, to go ahead and do the program. So, a big thank you to everybody. There's a large list of folks who contributed, some as little as $50, and that's fine. Enough of those, it all adds up. Every single person deserves the same pat on the back to helping with this project to make it work. And so they did get enough money to meet the match, and so the board can go ahead and move forward with the project. And they're going to it's still going to take a pretty good commitment from the school. I know how this works on building. There'll be unexpected expenses and cost overruns, but at least they do have this money set there, or earmarked and set aside, and met the match, can get the $500,000 grant, and actually then that may qualify them then even for some more dollars and some grant dollars and things that come into play. But without the 400 and some $1,000, almost 500,000 from the community, people just chipping in and going to bat for the kids in the school, the whole thing would have collapsed and nothing would have happened. So,
and that would have been a waste.
Well,
just a total waste.
Would have been a terrible shame.
Yeah. And so they've got their 438 that they needed to have, and as I mentioned, 448,005 is what they ended up in the bank as of yesterday afternoon, and that's when
and as I understand it,
said you had to have it.
And as I understand it, folks could still contribute to it and still take advantage of those 50% tax credits.
I think to the end of the month, you still get your YOP tax credit. So yes, you can still make a contribution. It's a 50% tax credit.
So for more information on that, call the administrative office and talk to Dr. Lynn Reed, on how they can contribute, how to make that work, and they'll sure take that. And
absolutely.
So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. So
it really
I'm
is.
glad we could.
But the only reason I brought it up because the commission did make a nice contribution to it out of ARPA funds. But we had talked about it last time we were on the air. This actually was such a huge, big program for our kids that we just didn't want to see it.
Well, it really is an investment in the future.
It really
for
is.
these kids there now and all the kids coming in.
And we don't want to forget about the computer security part of that either. Because there are computer programs that are associated, are going to be in that building as well, and just teaching about computer security, internet security.
That's the technology side of the
technology side.
Right.
So we don't want to forget about that, because that's a big part of it too.
That's right. It's easier for people like me to wrap my mind around the building trades thing than it is the computer.
I just want to touch base on that because that was a goal we were had to meet it by yesterday, and we did. And I
would say it's one of the highlights from the last couple of weeks since we've been on the radio,
so
that we were able to get that done.
All right, the rest of the show is yours.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, there's lots of things going on, and I'll just back up. A couple of things. Road and Bridge, of course, doing the usual grading, cutting brush. It's amazing. You have a year when it's real dry, and you think, well, maybe you can get ahead on the brush. It takes, with our brush cutters going every day, it takes a full year for the brush cutters to make the circle. Yeah. Well, obviously, on some of the roads, where they get started. Some of those that they do, in April or May. By fall they're grown up again, and the fact is we really haven't been able to quite get around all the rest of the roads. And people's, you might say, well, you need to get more brush cutters and work it. Well, there's only so much money in the budget, and we've also got to buy road graders. We have 2 new road graders coming, and manpower, and so we can only do what we can do. It wasn't that years ago. I mean, when I was a kid, the county didn't cut any of the brush along the roads. Landowners took care of that, but that's not really feasible. And actually, the cutting the brush really aids the county as much in the grader operators being able to do a better job of getting the entire road graded
and
the ditches and help help you with ditch maintenance and so forth if you don't have all that brush sitting there hanging out over the road. And obviously, you know, we want to do what we can to, it makes the roads look nicer and it makes it better for people traveling the roads, and especially, you know, if you're pulling campers and things, or, you know, we try to address those issues. So, but at any rate, I hope folks will be patient. The crews are out cutting brush just about every day, trying to get around. And, you know, now sometimes if there's a big project going on, like a low water crossing replacement or something, the entire crew will be working on that, because those are some things that when you jump in to do it, you've got to have all hands on deck and get in, get it done, and get back out. You know, this time of year, we've been lucky the last couple of weeks. It's been pretty dry. And, you know, generally, some projects, August and September, usually turn out to be our driest months. Mm-hmm. This year, our driest months actually were June and July. Yeah. So, but at any rate, you never know. So anyway, but that's what they've been working on. They've been doing some chip and seal repair, and getting ready to do the chip and seal overlay on several of our roads. I've been meeting with talked into the contractor. I think the contractor is going to be here either maybe later next week and visit with the guys, and then start getting his equipment moved in and do quite a bit of that. One thing I do want to mention, we've talked about FLAP, these two FLAP projects, and FLAP stands for Federal Lands Access Program. And that's a program where we can access federal dollars, access federal dollars to work on roads that basically, as the name implies, access federal lands. Mm-hmm. So we've had two of those projects down in these projects were started by Commissioner Purcell when he was First District Commissioner. Wes Mowbray has been working on these projects since, and you know, we put them out for bid, and one of them is to rebuild a Coulee Bridge, and this is down in the southeast part of the county, just a little ways from Bunker. I forget the county road number, but it doesn't matter. But it was to rebuild that bridge. We put it out for bid for that project earlier this summer, and then also another FLAP project was to asphalt the county road that goes down the hill to Tanvat. Mm-hmm. You know, you drop off YY turns into county road, and then that long hill that goes down to Tanvat, very difficult to maintain, so on. So we were going to asphalt that. Interestingly enough, we didn't even get any bids for any companies interested in doing the asphalt work. Companies are busy everywhere. They just didn't, nobody bid it. The Coulee Bridge project, it came in quite a bit over what the engineers had estimated the cost should be for that project, so we rejected both of those. And the engineer, when working with MoDOT, these things have to be coordinated with MoDOT as well on these FLAP projects, so they wanted us to go ahead and put this project back out for bid again right away, and with the idea that the work would start, for the work to begin sometime early spring of next year. So we did it. We've advertised it, and we have put it back out for bid. And you know, I'm personally, I just have my reservations that we're going to have much interest from these contractors because of the way prices are and material and things. We'll see, but we're going to do what the engineers and MoDOT wanted us to do about getting it back out for bid and see if we could get some bidding tied down. And of course, the flip of that, though, is a lot of these contractors now, they're finishing up work that they had, and they are looking to next year. So maybe we will. I may be wrong. If I am, hey, that's great. I'll be tickled to death if we can get some bids back in on this and get this thing tied down. But I wonder if we'll get many bids when they're trying to figure out what the thing's going to cost next year.
Right. The engineers actually said that they would put the bids out early next year.
Yeah, well, they backed up after talking with MoDOT. Sure. Then they come back and said, you know what, they'd really like to see if we could get this back out for bid. And so, I mean, it really doesn't cost us much of anything other than an ad in the paper to point out, you know, we're seeking bids. And so we put it back out. We'll see what happens on that. So if not, then we'll shoot again for after the first of the year and put it back out and see what happens then. So anyway, but we're going to get those done. Yeah. But along with that, these FLAP projects, these things come up, you have to apply and go through a process. So Wes did put in a project application to do another FLAP project that would be completed sometime in 24, possibly, to go ahead and pave the rest of that road then from Tanvat on into the back of, I call it the back of Montauk, and that's County Road 6670 is what that is. So he did apply for that and actually did receive full funding for that for that project, and that's about, what is it, I forget now, $600,000 or $800,000
$809,000.
with no local match
Right.
tied to that. So that's a good, because most of these you have a pretty considerable local match. And I say local match, many times that local match even is, if it can be as little, even just in-kind work, as far as the county hauling rock and doing some material and stuff with their own people, not so much cash. So, but this one doesn't even require hardly any local match at all to make it work, and it includes some widening of that road, and we call it the Bluff Road, and that's as you go out of Montauk, going south along the river, that Bluff Road right there. There's some water seeps out all the time. It's very difficult to maintain. Going to be interesting to see how that works out engineering-wise. They're calling for putting some guardrail in along the side of it, and I'm not sure I understand yet what the engineers think they're going to attach the guardrail to, but that's okay. It met the requirements for the flap, so it may create quite a flap when they start trying to fasten
guardrail.
A virtual guardrail. A virtual guardrail. Yeah, that'd be real comforting.
So when you're driving with your glasses on, you see the guardrail so you don't go off.
I'd suggest you just drive it and be careful. And, hug the bluff as much as you can. So anyway, that's a pretty neat deal. If we could get that done, that would be great. And I know the park superintendent has been very supportive of that, and the state is willing to work with us on I think pretty much whatever we need to do to try to make that work. So anyway, that's some pretty neat.
But I want to back up a little bit of a point of how much money that is, $809,000. There's no way the county could take that kind of money out of their road and bridge department budget to ever do this kind of project. There's no way. You couldn't do it.
No.
And you would if you did that, you couldn't do anything else the rest of the year.
Right. And then again, but this particular program qualifies as a federal lands access program because you come out of Montauk and you go, and Tanvat is on the Ozark National Scenic Riverway, it's a federal land. So that's why that program. So these projects go on all over the country.
Sure.
Called FLAP, and Congress sets aside a certain amount of monies to help provide better access to some of those federal lands. So.
But for all this time, though, where the county has maintained County Road 6670 and graded it, and all the money that's been going down there, and we all know that as soon as you have an ice storm, that road is it's iffy at best.
Right, it's a train.
And then when you go back out there, when the ice melts, it's just a mess.
Yeah.
And it takes, I don't know how many times over that they have to go back over that road to fix it all back up, because the potholes, it just seems like they grow overnight down there, and when you get ice storms and rain. So I think it's a great thing, but I just know that when you start talking the dollars, I've seen the budget when the road and
the
bridge,
only big downside is we'll be responsible for maintenance on that road then after that. But,
Sure.
It's if you go back over them periodically, just like the state has been doing chip and seal on numerous roads across the county and across the region, and they do that. And so periodically we'll need to put a chip and seal layer back down on it to reseal it and keep them from breaking up. So, but it'll be a great road for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah. It'll be good, very good to go.
Our challenge then will be trying to keep people from driving faster than they need to.
Wow.
As it is right now, they don't drive faster than they need to. Yeah, you can't
maybe
stand
even
it.
a little slower.
So anyway,
very
that's some exciting things
It
going
is
on
good.
there. We do have a couple of new graders coming in sometime here next month, hopefully, and we will be shortly putting out for bids for lease purchase financing on those to get local banks to provide the lease purchase financing on that. For years, and many counties still do, I know, when they buy new graders and things, they just do an automatic financing it through the companies, whoever they're buying the graders from, and it's very easy, much easier. Just wait for it to be delivered, then sign the papers, and it's done. But we found several years ago we could put that out for bid from our local lenders here in town. We've got great folks right here in town in the community, and that's what they're in business for, and they will
Usually
give them a
beat the
chance.
rate that you're offering.
Generally always beat the rate of for John Deere, Caterpillar, or whoever, and keep that money right here then, and that interest we pay stays right here then. And so I'm really pleased that we have our local lenders, because it's a lot of work. I mean, they have to go to a lot of work, because these are kind of special deals for a municipal lease purchase thing, and so there's a lot of work goes into those things, putting those bids together, and you put it out there, and if you get 3 bids from our local lenders, and usually do, and 2 of them aren't going to get it, and they went all that work to bid it and did not get it, and that's but one of them does. And so we appreciate that, but we also appreciate all of them going to the work and taking the time to bid it and stuff. And so appreciate that. We'll be
and
doing
it's
that.
all done to keep the money right here in Dent County.
Yep, that's right.
That's the whole purpose.
So anyway, did want to mention that. So
Always
and
appreciate
since
that.
we're talking about money, we can go ahead and talk about sales tax if you want.
Well, I thought you might talk about Corky Stack and court and.
Well, let's talk about money, and then we'll
okay.
we'll talk about money we're getting in, and then we'll talk about money we're going to spend. How's that?
Okay.
I found that works better in my budget.
That sounds good
I have
to
to
me.
work it that way in my budget at least. Only problem is on the farm. It seems like the money needing to go out is
Goes out,
usually
yeah, it probably goes-
that's the way this always works too. But at any rate,
Yeah, it does.
Treasurer Danita Williams, she did come in, reported her sales tax for September,
Right.
and up significantly from sales tax of September of last year. Now, year to date again. Our year-to-date figures are totally messed up because of the Department of Revenue's withholding last year and that whole mess Department of Revenue
For
created.
about 3 months, sales taxes.
Virtually nilch.
Yeah.
Zilch. What did I say, zill? I'm not sure where that, zilch,
Yeah.
But at any rate, our September sales tax actually was up about 10 to 11% across the board from September of last year. Now, we know part of that obviously is because of inflation, that as cost of goods go up, then you take that sales tax is going to be a little higher too than as a percentage. But a good bit of that, I think, is just an increase in economic activity and things going on. So that's always good to see. But, our GRs and law enforcement sales tax budget, those sales tax revenues for September, just sales tax revenue alone was up about $12,000 over what it was in September last year. I think it was about 111,000 if memory serves me correct, and last year it was around 99,000 for that same month. But from month to month it'll vary, so you don't want to take any one month to go, oh boy.
Yeah. Hey, we're really hauling it in.
Yep, everything's good because the next month you might be down 5,000 or 7,000 from what it was the same month a year ago. It just depends on when them revenues come in and when
That's right.
Department of Revenue pulls the trigger and when Department of Revenue does. Whoever can figure out what Department of Revenue is doing. So at any rate, but it is up. It was up about 12% and 10%. It's up about 11%. Road and Bridge Fund revenue was up about 9 or 10% as well. And the two jail funds were up a little over 10% just for the month of September. Again, don't even try to compare it with the year before because of the Department of Revenue. But the good news is it's up and it's looking good. And again, back on the Department of Revenue thing, we are still working with them and negotiating how the payback will be of little over 935,000. It was reported somewhere. Somebody said they read that it was millions of dollars that we owe now. No, it's not millions. I'm not sure where that came from. It's not millions. It's $935,000 and some change is what's got to be still paid back.
Still paid back.
And we're still working with Department of Revenue. Talked to the attorney this week. Department of Revenue had gotten back to him with a new proposal on payback, which looked better than the one they'd had before. But I'd still like a better proposal, and so we're still working on that, and we'll see what comes on that. But at least that's coming to a final end, and this is it. And so they have agreed what the total amount is. So the calculator has stopped, and they're done, and it's 935,000 and some change. And so anyway.
You know what? Let's just backtrack for a second. How important it was for Dent County to have the balances that they did at that time. Because had you not had, let's just say you were hovering at $100,000 in balance, and you've heard people say, well, why guys keep all that money on hand? Why do you think you keep that money on hand? Just for that kind of purpose? Because
for
county wouldn't have been able to afford anything with no sales tax.
You better have some money on hand from them rainy days. We call them rainy days or dark days. And let me tell you, that was some dark days when we found out they were withholding $1,005,000 from us. That was last year in 21, when by surprise, for those who don't know the story, in February,
Joining us for the first time, maybe.
Right. And again, we're talking. I'm on here bringing folks up to date on county business. But at any rate, in February of last year, most folks remember, all of a sudden, no sales tax showed up at all. We get sales tax every month from Department of Revenue for our law enforcement sales tax fund, for general revenue, for the two jail funds, and for road and bridge. That's what our budget is built around, that, and plus other revenues too. But those are the main sources of funding, really. Those really overshadow property tax or anything else that the county gets. The county's portion of property tax is relatively small compared to the schools and all those other entities added up. But at any rate, sales tax is what drives the budget. We had spent all of January in 2021 working on putting a good budget together. Very happy. Everything, we work with office holders, put together a good budget, and then only to find out that the Department of Revenue knew going back months and months and months back into 2020 that they had made an error years and years ago with a large entity outside the county, giving them the wrong information to submit sales tax for. And so for many years, we had been getting monthly sales tax from this large entity. And you know, and the amazing part and the really frustrating part was even going back as far as 2018, we seen a bump up and an increase, and we contacted and we asked Department of Revenue if they were sure these numbers were correct, because they just seemed they weren't just massively higher, but they were higher, and you know, you have a little bit of a pulse.
An unusual bump.
Yeah, and you have a little bit of a pulse on what's going on economic wise in our community. We're not so big that you don't know, and you know, but nope, Department of Revenue assured us, nope, it's good, it's fine, it's yours, spend it. That was, you know, the word. And so luckily we didn't spend it all. And I mean, you know, we always worked on trying to get by without spending any more than we need to, and put some of that money aside to do some things. We need to do some work on the courthouse now and stuff. So anyway, they realized back as far as May in 2020, Department of Revenue realized they had made a big mistake. They started working on that. And then that they actually knew at the end of December of 2020 that it was about $1,005,000 they were going to be withholding, and they got the process started. But all that time, they never informed the county in any way, shape, or form what had happened, what was going on, until all of a sudden in February, no money showed up. I mean, this is direct deposit is how it shows up, and
It's
you
not
just
like
get
you're waiting on a
notice.
check and it didn't show up in the mail.
No, and it just didn't show up in the account, and so we called to find out, and they just the lady kind of chuckled, we made a mistake several years ago, and so no, you're not going to get any sales tax revenue in February. It's February 21, or in March of 21, and you'll get a very small amount. You will get a small amount looks like in April. Depending, and see what they do.
Yeah.
What they do is the sales tax you were going to get. I mean, they had what the amount was they were going to withhold. The sales tax we would have gotten in February was deducted from that. So now it's down to this. And so then the sales tax we would have gotten in March, they deduct again from the rest of that, and then they clawed back the rest of it in April, and we had a small amount left that we were able to get, and then we started on. So then we ended up. It ended up in a deal of trying to find out from them, how did this happen, when did this happen, who's responsible for it happening. They didn't tell us at that time. You know, I mean, they just clawed it all back, and then a few days later, told me at a little after 11, if we could get something in writing to them before noon that day, they would back up and just spread that repayment of those funds out over a 3-year period, maybe. But I had to get that to them in 45 minutes, basically. Well, and there's no way we could get together, and we needed the sheriff to be there as well, because one of the main funds affected was the sheriff's department budget. They called back about $225,000 from general revenue and from the law enforcement fund. Well, if memory serves me correct, we were going to finish the year with the sheriff's fund of about a balance of about $240,000. They're calling back $225,000 here right off the bat, right here at the front of the budget. But because they had found the mistake, there was going to be about $5,000, $6,000 per month less revenue coming in. So you extrapolate that out over the the rest of the year. The sheriff's whole fund, while he was going to finish the year at $235,000, he was going to be in the law enforcement. But I say the sheriff, the law enforcement budget was going to be in the hole, in a negative figure. We couldn't do that. Now, thank God, we did have, as you said, we had a pretty good fund balance in GR. We can use GR to make transfers to other funds. So at any rate, when they tell me then at a quarter after, about 10 or a quarter after 11, that we can spread this payment out over several years, there's no way I can do that. So that decision was already made for us. They called it all back in the beginning. Did not share with me at that time that the calculator was still running and still adding up more withholdings. They didn't share that at all. We didn't find that out until, well, actually they quit communicating and providing any information to us. We ended up hiring the Missouri Association of Counties legal counsel, Travis Elliott, with the firm in Springfield, to get involved in this and try to get accurate information what happened. We found out in May then that calculator was still running. They'd already taken $1.5 million, but the calculator was still running, and they were still adding up more dollars. They found that the large entity had mistakenly paid due to the Department of Revenue's error. But they agreed not to withhold any more until we got this all unraveled, how it happened and what the totals were and what kind of a payback that would look like. Because, you know, We ate the whole $1.5 million in one fell swoop there in the spring of 2021. Right. Had we known there was almost another million going to be added to it, and known in time that there was a payback over some months, we might have done this differently. We never even had that opportunity. But we ate the $1.5 million. We luckily we ended the year with a good enough balance in road and bridge. We just absorbed that. It was about 116,000, I think, that they withheld at that time from road and bridge, about 225,000 or so from the general revenue fund. We ate those deals and went ahead then and amended the budgets and went ahead and made a large transfer from general revenue to the law enforcement fund so that it didn't require slashing and burning and laying people off and so on and so forth. But it's affected the 2 jail funds as well. Now, luckily, we had balances there that were enough. We were able to absorb that because of the way that worked with sales tax coming in, and that was part of the plan.
Still make your payment on the bonds and everything else.
No problem there, no threat or
that could have
issue
been
there,
a big deal.
But it could have been. So at any rate, that's what we were dealing with there, only to find out later. I mean, we made those transfers, luckily, as you said. I mean, and I've told this story across the state to every county commission group I'd be in front of. Just be aware what can happen to you. All of a sudden, you think everything's good, and it probably is, until all of a sudden you find out DOR's made a bad mistake, and you're broke, and you thought you were fine, and we weren't broke, but I did have commissioners come up and tell me, my God, if this happened to them, they just have to hand them the keys to the courthouse, say, well, it's yours now, because we're out of business.
But not only that, Darrell, how it affected how the county operated for the whole 2021 year.
Oh, yeah.
You had to revamp everything. The budget's there, but you have to revamp it, and they don't allow you to change the budget.
Well, actually, we did. I mean, if you have a significant enough revenue deduction or an increase in revenue, you can amend your budget. Or if it shows you have a significant decrease, what it is you have to document it, so on, and then you can, think. But it changed completely. The budget we had adopted and just worked on all through January of 21 was just throw it in the trash and start over.
It was skeletal after that.
Yeah, it changed everything as far as, I mean, the day we found out this had happened, we actually were looking at trying to replace a loader at Road and Bridge,
right.
and the guy from one of the equipment places was in at the meeting talking about what loaders they had and what they offered, and the treasurer and I then, after we got off the phone with Department of Revenue, came in and advised the commission and everybody what had just happened, and instead of a loader, we were inquiring about used scoop shovels and things. That no, there would be no new loader. So now, since that, then ARPA money come along, a large deal of ARPA, and they've changed the rules on ARPA that it can be, one of the things ARPA can be used is to replace lost revenue. And the crazy part about ARPA is you don't even really have to tie the lost revenue to COVID. It's just if you had a decrease in revenue during the time period in this deal, then you're free to use ARPA funds for pretty much whatever. You can't use it for bonding and building new buildings and some of those things. There's still some restriction, but otherwise that money's sitting there. So we have done some things with ARPA. People know we paid for the extrication equipment, new equipment for the fire departments, and we put out there for the departments to be eligible for $10,000 because our fire departments across the county did receive much less revenue and suffered. As a result of COVID, it changed things quite a bit for them. So we've made $40,000 available for the 4 fire departments to apply for $10,000 each to help with needed purchase equipment upgrades and some things. Have done that, and like I say, the extrication equipment. Here a few months ago, it came to our attention the hospital was in dire need of a new electrical system upgrade, transformer, and all the things that go along with that. And the old transformer was in bad shape. The hospital had ran into some problems and simply didn't have the cash that it was going to take to upgrade the electrical system, and it was in danger of just all of a sudden the lights go out and everything going on come to a halt. And our hospital is very important to our community, for people. If you have an emergency and they're there taking care of you, there's lives, there's people walking around right now as a result of being able to get the care they needed right then when they got there, and not have to spend another 30 minutes on the road to get to another facility. We felt that was important, so we did make some obligation of ARPA funds to help cover that and some things, and again, like this deal. But at any rate, we still have a good amount of ARPA funds sitting there, and so we've been kind of holding off even on doing some work on the courthouse all of the work. We put that out for bid. But we've been holding off until we finally get this settled with the Department of Revenue on what this payback was going to look like. If we could get them to agree to spread the payback out over enough number of years, we really wouldn't notice that withholding every month so much, and it wouldn't hurt. We could absorb it in it and make that work budgetary wise to where it would free us up to go ahead and do some of these other things. We'd set aside, and I know I'm rambling here, and it's we're going down a lot of rabbit trails.
It's an in-depth report because this is what's happened.
Right.
And for anybody that doesn't know, this has gone on 2 years now, and it's still not over.
Well, and
it's getting close.
And our attorney and his entire firm, it's a large firm at Springfield, and their people went to work on this trying to get the information from Department of Revenue, how these numbers came about. And I went down for a meeting they had, and some of the numbers weren't making sense. They weren't weren't making sense on how they were arriving at those numbers. And one of the interesting things we asked, okay, well, how did these numbers come about? Where did you get these numbers for these years going back? And the answer was, Stan, well, unfortunately, those numbers came about from the old computer system and things that they had, and that they've changed system, and they don't have the ability to go back in the old system and pull that up to know where those numbers come from. So we're dealing with numbers that they can't even tell you for sure how and where they come from.
So that could have been made up. You wouldn't never know.
And I mean, our attorney, they've looked at it in depth and things, and they feel like that it is very close, because what they're doing is they're getting back with the entity itself is having to go back, has had to have their accounting department go through these numbers and add up and so on. It just was frustrating to see where Department of Revenue, some of their figures that we couldn't match. But it's close enough, we feel, okay, we're probably fine. We did find several thousand that they agreed, wait a minute, that probably did not fall within the deal. So it's paid off. We've more than paid for all of the cost of paying the attorney to get involved, just in some numbers that they did get Department of Revenue to agree, wait a second, that probably should not have applied, and so pulled those off. So the amount is less than what it was going to be had we not had an independent attorney in their firm and their people reviewing it all. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it has been quite a process over the last year or so. But at any rate, it's getting there. And I'll be honest, I mean, I've spoke earlier this spring with Department of Revenue's and new director, Wayne Wallingford. He's a former senator and representative from Southeast Missouri. Super, super nice man. He is very sympathetic to what happened, rather apologetic about how it happened and that it shouldn't have, and was looking into it. And I feel certain that he's going to try to do whatever he can from his position there to try to help. But statutes come into play. I mean, you can say, well, Department of Revenue ought to just say, well, it was our mistake, so forget it. Well, by law, they can't do that. These revenues that we did get should have gone to a couple other counties, and those other counties want it. And you don't blame them. I would too. If I found some of our sales tax revenues going to I don't care what county, I'd be saying to the Department of Revenue, I want my money.
We had that issue with CenturyLink.
Exactly. We ran into that. And so you fight tooth and toenail for those dollars, and I do not blame those counties that are getting those dollars back as we have to repay them. I don't blame them one bit. So, there's that. That's the other side of that coin there. Mm-hmm. And so I know the director at the Department of Revenue has his legal people are looking at that and how that works. Now, if they can work out something where we get a better deal cut and they can still meet their statutory responsibilities to those other counties, then hey, that's fine. That's what they're looking at. I know. Director, I think, will be looking at all those issues. He's a good guy. He really is. And anybody that knows him will tell you that if there's anything he can do to help, he will. So I'm pretty comfortable about that we're about to arrive at something that at least is a little more palatable than what it was going to be. Originally, the only offer was to pay it back over 3 years, which is kind of a standard deal. But we'll see how this works out. But I think it'll work out where we can finally put it behind us and move on.
So with that being said,
yep.
Now we can actually go and talk about the county is moving forward. You've been wanting to do things to the courthouse that's needed to be done.
Needed repairs.
And you got a bid in. Corky Stack has been the engineer and working with different companies. And you actually have an opportunity to get some of the work. Well, there's no way you could even.
And we put it out for bid earlier this summer.
Right.
He had no local bidders either here or Rolla area bid it. They were all busy, just didn't have time to mess with it and look at it. Got a couple of bids from some contractors quite a ways out of town.
In Kansas City and St. Louis.
Yeah, anyway, and it was like almost $4 million to $5.5 million or something, just totally. And as we felt like those bids were just something put in at three or four times what it really ought to be. But if figured they'd put it out there, and if they got the bid, hey man, they just made a fortune.
Yeah.
So so we rejected those bids. We put it out for bid again, and gave more time for some of those local contractors to look at it. And we did have a very good firm, reputable firm from Rolla that actually would be using some local folks here in Dade County as subcontractors for a major portion of the carpentry work they would be doing. And this is all mainly for some exterior work on the old building. We got a lot of brickwork that needs to be done, replacing the dormers and the old all around the outside of it, and the old courthouse just needs a bit of a facelift, redoing the electrical coming in. Once we get going, it may be that we may not have lights on the Christmas lights on the courthouse this year, because if we finally get to that point there, then there's going to be scaffolding. They're going to be taking everything off so that they can replace woodwork and guttering and stuff. It's got to be replaced. So we'll see how that works out. That'll be disappointing, I know, to me and to everybody. But you got to if you got to work on your house, it's not going to look the way you want it to look for a while until you get it done. But so right now, the bids came in. We rebid it. The bids came in at about 1.6 million. I think 1,620,000 or so. So that was much more livable. We had put aside about 800,000 in general revenue to do some work on the outside. Obviously not enough for that, but we hope to use some of the ARPA funds for that. But again, we're kind of holding off, waiting to see how much ARPA funds have to be used to offset this Department of Revenue withholding. Right. So everything's kind of in limbo there. But we had the architect take a look at it, the engineer, Corky Stack from over at St. James, and he come back and says, there's a big portion of this, about $500 and some thousand, I think $507,000, of work that could be done. Go ahead and we could approve. The contractor would allow us to approve these portions of the contract to go ahead and get started with that, because a lot of that work they're going to do from lists. A lot of the work, when they go in to do it, they're going to actually surround the courthouse with scaffolding all the way around the building to go in and do a lot of this work on those old dormers up high where the round windows are. So they felt like this other work, though, could be done with portable lists. That the masonry folks will be doing that, also going up on top, removing all the old chimneys that still stick out of the roof up there, get those down below roof level and seal back over and get all of that all sealed up and things. There's just some issues there all the time. So it's about $500,000. So we did approve that yesterday for him to go ahead and proceed in getting that done, because we've got that covered under GR anyway.
And that locks that full bid in place.
Well, all of that for that $500,000
right,
part of that.
But it locks
still
the contractor in. You are committed to this now.
Right. Now we've got the bid. That bid was good for 30 days when we opened it on the entire 1.6 million. Right. We've got till next week. We got through next week to look at that and see if we want to approve the rest of that bid and go ahead and move forward with that. And so we'll be taking a look at that as we go through this week and see what we can do. Otherwise, the contractors doesn't have to guarantee those prices. Well, but for right now, the contractor had put it out. He checked with suppliers, got his bids, got his prices firm. But a contractor can only hold a bid firm for so long.
Sure, and we all know what prices do daily now.
Especially anymore. Right now, it is so volatile. It's crazy. Yeah. So anyway, that's where we're at on that. We did approve about $500 and some thousand worth of work on the exterior of the courthouse for that work to go ahead and begin. And again, that's going to be basically what you're going to see is a lot of brickwork. A lot of the brick on the east end of the building had what they call galled. It's a lot of that brick was going to need to be replaced, but a lot of work up on top again, and that will be putting all the electrical to come in underground. The service, because pretty difficult to put scaffolding around the building when you got high voltage electric lines going through the air. You can't weave high voltage electrical lines through scaffolding.
So those are old electrical lines.
They are old electrical lines.
There needs to be an upgraded service.
Needs to
and
be
I think
upgraded.
Part of the
right.
the deal as well to bring more in because the county is using more and more and more electric,
Uh-huh.
and now more fiber optics and all these other things are coming in. So
Yep.
you have to have what you have to have to
Yeah.
continue to
Yes.
operate.
So anyway, so we got that going on. Something else, we hadn't talked about much, but a few months ago we did put out for bid it to go ahead and replace the security system in the courthouse, and the work is finishing up on that on new cameras and monitors and much improved cameras, additional cameras. We just find sometimes activities going on that it really helps if we have cameras. What we find too, though, when people realize that there are cameras, cameras help deter mischief and things going on that doesn't need to happen. So it's nice to have. In the old system, we were having some problems. They've been in there quite a while, and so we do have a new inside the courthouse. We have a new system going on. Now, I will mention, we did talk about this a little bit in moving forward with all this work on the outside of the courthouse. We did ask the architect engineer to go ahead and be looking at and thinking about plans for a new bathroom on the first floor of the courthouse to serve the public. And so he will be looking at that and doing some measuring and drawing up some plans, specs that we can use to do a totally separate project on that. And that will be something we'll put out for bid here sometime probably and try to get a better, as it is right now, there's just one bathroom on that first floor. When the courthouse is real busy, we really need a second bathroom to serve the public and staff. So,
And now with the change in the absentee voting, that's going to be happening with no excuse absentee voting come late October, early November. Maybe not so much in this election. We don't have as many local races. But
Right.
and down the road, Darrell, that could
we're looking at more.
it could be pretty busy inside the courthouse.
Looking at more voters at any given time, and then and if you have court going on at the same time, we need more bathrooms.
Yeah.
Period. We've needed more bathrooms for a long time. I think we can go ahead and do that. I mean, it's looking good. I'm pretty excited about some things that we're able to go ahead and get started moving on. As it is, it's just been like this. Well, we've been working through this Department of Revenue thing like a huge black cloud because for a while we could never get them to tell us what was the big new figure, and was they going to just claw it all back at one time or let us work with, was they going to work with us? So they're going to work with us, I think, and we're going to finally, I mean, I would like to have been able to get them spread it out over 100 years or 99 years, but that probably wasn't, that wasn't practical and realistic. But if we can get something workable where we can figure out budget-wise how that works, that's what we're going to do. So anyway, a lot of things going on. Where are we at? We covered their sales tax. We got work going on the courthouse.
Economic Development Director Sally Burbridge gave her report.
Right, she comes in the first of every month to give us an update of what's happened the previous month. She's always got projects in the work or got, business expansion or new business or current business expansion and things that she's working with, and leads from the state that she follows up on. She's been working on getting this certified site developed, and we got about 20 acres, I think it is, cleared off out in the industrial park. And they got that cleared completely, and now this fall getting it graded down and seeded. Right. So that's a real plus and a real plus to already have there for a large entity or some kind of business.
Different.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody drive by there and all that woods is gone. And
right.
Wow.
Right. But if you're going to, and that's what that ground was for, part of the industrial park, and you can't very well have any industry come in there if it's all wood. So it can be quickly developed into whatever might come up for somebody wanting to locate. So
exactly.
It's just something you can use as an attraction. So you got to help, because you got to remember you're competing with every other city in the state for these businesses that want to come. But we got a lot to offer. We don't have an interstate. The minuses are we don't have an interstate or U.S. highway
or railroad.
Mm-hmm. So you got to take that into consideration. But as far as companies who are looking at a place where quality of life is important to them for their employees and their staff, we have a big edge there.
We also, there was one company that was looking to expand, and it had interest in Salem because of the certified site designation, but they changed their requirements and needed to have 150,000 people within a 45-minute commute. Well, it kind of put us out of the
workforce demands. We couldn't quite
kind of put us out of that game.
Yeah,
because they were wondering, and Sally mentioned this last night at the alderman meeting. about the sudden drop in workforce in Dent County. Well, I talked to her last night, got something from the state that since Governor Parsons, he reduced the amount of unemployment benefits. It used to be half a year. They reduced it back to a quarter.
Yeah.
And so when they did that, these people fell off the unemployment.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why it doesn't matter if they go out and look for a job now, they're not going to get unemployment benefits. So they're not looking right now for a job. They have not gone back into the workforce. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why those numbers took a big
Yeah, a bunch of those numbers have been rather skewed
Yeah.
for various political reasons. I mean,
So,
some
anyway,
things.
but
So,
that's what I
anyway.
told her that. I said I got a little email on that. If suddenly, all of a sudden, your unemployment rate may actually go down because there's less people looking for work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a true, accurate statement of the employment in your count, possibly in your count.
Right.
So anyway, that's one of those things. Very good. So, but she does a great job, and really, really appreciate all the work that she does. You know,
Does a great job for us in economic development, and very happy for the county to be able to work with the city and in getting that position filled that Sally filled, and she was a great addition to that. Of course, she's wearing extra hats as
she wears a lot of different hats now.
interim city administrator, and but she's a very capable person and goes about her
it's
goes
a
about her work
learning
well.
curve. You know?
Yeah, very
Like
dedicated.
anything is. It's always a learning curve.
So anyway,
What else
that's
would you like
it.
to talk about?
Well, we had a couple of meetings.
Yes, you
Been
did.
to, there always meetings. Been busy in that regard. We'll mention first, I did attend this week Ozark River Solid Waste Management District Executive Board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Took up a good part of that day, as our main task that day was to review solid waste and waste reduction recycling grant applications. We go through those every single one of them. We had 10 grant applications this year. We go through them one by one and item by item on those lists. We score them, give them a score, and we had one presenter to come in and talked about their particular grant application and give us more details. But at any rate, we scored those. We had about those grants totaled about $300 and some thousand dollars.
18,000, I think is what you said.
And that they were requesting, and we've got a total of about 185,000 that will be available. And that 185,000, of course, comes from Department of Natural Resources. That is earmarked for waste reduction, recycling grant programs across the region. Those dollars come from tipping fees that are collected at the landfills and in the region. So we'll meet again. We did score those. I don't know how they scored yet. Staff will be adding those up, the scores that we all gave them. Each individual member of the board that sits on that committee, we give them all a score, and they have different point values depending on what the category is and the range. But at any rate, they'll add those up. We'll meet again September 27th and look at those scores of each grant and then start figuring out who's going to get how much. It's going to be pretty, and many of the grant applications indicate, their application, they'd be perfectly willing to take partial funding, and several or most of them will have to take partial funding because obviously quite a spread between 185,000 and 300,000 is something that's available. So we'll decide that, but some good applications, and we got that done.
Okay. How about that Ozark Run Scenic Byway? How was that?
That was a feisty little meeting down at West Plains concerning the Ozark Run Scenic Byway. And for those who hadn't heard before, there's an organization in St. Louis that did put together an application and proposed designating about a 340 or 50 mile stretches of highway running from St. Louis, taking down Highway 21 down through Washington County, with a side road going up, I believe it's Highway 185, back up to I-40,
185, yeah.
going up to I-44, up to Sullivan, and then but then going on down Highway 21 all the way down through Washington County, on down into Iron County to Highway 106, taking 106 and cutting across Iron County there, right across Reynolds County, and across northern Shannon County or central Shannon County, and coming into Eminence, catching up with Highway 19, and then following 19 south all the way down through to Thayer, and then at Thayer catching, I believe it is Highway 160, and heading straight west then over to terminate over on Highway 65 just north of Branson. And so And that entire stretch then would be designated a scenic byway. And well, that sounds rather innocuous. I mean, sounds, pretty easy and
Well,
nice.
definitely
and,
is scenic.
It's very scenic, absolutely is. Beautiful stretches of highway all the way through there. And I'll just say this: there's one of the most beautiful drives you can take is over there around that on Highway 21 in Arcadia Valley when you get into late October and the timber's changing. It's a beautiful, beautiful valley. It really does make you think of some of the western mountain states and some of those drives in the valleys. But at any rate, it's all a very scenic drive, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with wanting to promote how people could drive a scenic drive. The problem is, in the legislation, state and nationally, these folks, they were proposing to make that a scenic byway, a state designation as well as a national designation. Okay, well, the national designation on the scenic byway then comes with pretty much a total ban of any new billboards anywhere along that highway. And now you can argue whether you like or don't like billboards, but the fact is those billboards are usually on they are always on private property, and somebody's paying to put that billboard up, and many times the person that owns the property is being paid to allow that billboard to be on their property. Yeah. If you live along this National Scenic Byway, then you can't get paid, get any money for somebody wanting to put a billboard up on your property, advertising what their resort or what their business is along that.
Maybe 500 feet down the road, but if it's on your property, you can't do it.
So anyway, so that comes with restrictions, but if it's a state scenic byway, that comes actually even a little further restriction, because it's basically any signage is not allowed along the scenic byway, and it comes with restrictions also on other things, what you can or can't do within the view of the scenic byway.
The intrinsic.
Yeah,
I
the
love
intrinsic.
that
Yeah,
term.
and so I mean, it's very loosely worded, but in the end, it gives more. It comes with private property rights restrictions and regulation, and people, frankly, are fed up with, and I fall in that category, fed up with state and federal restrictions on private property rights or infringements, and you don't get any reduction in your property taxes if you live along the scenic byway, but you are restricted in what you can do with your property. And Stan, just if nothing else, for instance, I own property along the scenic byway, and you own a resort several miles down the road, and you come to me and go, "Hey, Darrell, man, this is be a great place. You got a beautiful spot. Could I put a 10 by 12 sign here, say, stop at Stan's, stay at Stan's Riverside Resort. You give me $2,500 a year if you could put that sign up there, because it's great for you, great for me." Oh, wait a second. Oh, man, this is a scenic byway now. No, I can't take your $2,500 because I can't put it up.
And you can't put up a sign.
But I still have to pay the same amount of taxes that I had before, even though now my ability to use my property is restricted. It's just wrong. That part of the statute, the rest of the scenic byway thing I like, but that part of it there that infringes on people's property rights, nope. No, that's a no deal. Now,
I want to say this on the one quote that I saw in there that really scared me the most, and I read it, and I'm going to quote it to you. The intrinsic.
There you go.
The intrinsic features that are visible or non-visible from the road.
Yeah, are you kidding?
You can't touch them. And I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? That's visible or non-visible? Does that mean that barn that I got falling back, that's barely visible from the road, I can't do anything? Just got to let it fall down? Well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means.
And the problem is, it depends on who you ask. But the problem is, it isn't up to you, the landowner.
But if that barn
it's up to somebody else.
Are they going to come and find me?
Yeah. It's just too open-ended on that end, and people are sick and tired of the government. And they say, well, the government isn't going to do this. I'm going to tell you, what the government said would happen with the National Scenic Riverways when they took that land isn't what's happening.
No, not even close.
And they changed the rules.
Oh, yeah.
So you know what? People said enough. So part of the requirements, though, when they put a scenic byway in, now you ask, well, wait a minute, none of that was crossing Dent County, so why am I involved? Just like that little side highway they decided to add going off of it, going up into Franklin County.
They call them sprints.
Sprints. There's also from Thayer, a sprint, they called it, going from on down south of Thayer, going on down into Arkansas, a separate little sprint. I forget what they called it.
Well, they're all sprints, all of them.
Yeah, and then as they get a scenic byway, then they propose adding various sprints and side deals. If it was a scenic byway coming across 106, hooking up with 19, it's a matter of time till they would want a sprint. Coming up 19, on up to the Dent County scenic portions and these things.
And probably going up to KK to Acres or something.
Now, and you know what's funny here, Stan? they kind of kept this quiet. They've been working on this for quite a while. They kept this very quiet. And, I mean, I actually found out kind of by accident a couple of months ago. And I called because one of the requirements is that they have to have hearings and meetings in each of the counties in which the Scenic Byway go through, and they want a vote of support or non-support by the county commission. They want a support of the city government that the Scenic Byway, if it goes through their locality, and so on. One of the interesting things about the application, even the application, I think is 120 pages, beautiful application, beautifully written, and so on. And on the first or second page, it lists all the various entities that support putting the Scenic Byway in. One of those supporters it listed was Oregon County, because it goes from Shannon County straight on down to Oregon. Well, Shannon County Commission, Oregon County Commission was listed as one of the supporters. And I thought, man, I know those guys. I can't believe they signed on to be a supporter of this thing with the private property rights implications. So I called and talked to them. They had no idea what that was about. They never indicated they were supporting this thing. Not at all. So the first or second page of the application has a bald-faced lie in it about who's supporting it. Well, why would you do that? That's ridiculous. So
You're
to
not
me,
making people happy to start with.
So to me, when you have a bald-faced lie that is not, then the rest of it is garbage and ought to go in the trash can as well. So, but at any rate, and then as I talked to other commissioners, down in Shannon County, they weren't aware that this thing was even in existence and going to be proposed. Same way with Howell County, they hadn't heard of it, didn't know anything about it. This was just a couple of months ago, and this thing's been worked on. They've got a slick video and a beautiful thing put on. Oregon and Ozark County, they'd never heard of it. Talked to the presiding down there. No. So then as I talked to him later, well, by golly, he says that MoDOT's involved in it because it has to go through MoDOT. And MoDOT had already was scheduling a meeting down in Ozark County and getting places lined up. So at any rate, they've had some meetings. They had one, I couldn't go to some of the others. They had one in I know, down at Eminence. They had a large crowd turned out for that, and that was a rather animated meeting out here. And the folks there, Shannon County Commission is voting, I can tell you, is voting that they absolutely are not interested in it. I haven't talked to them, but I know the Oregon County, they had a meeting this past week on Tuesday evening down at Howell County. At the Civic Center, I did go down to that, and about 40 or 50 people there, and they absolutely were very strongly and adamantly opposed to the proposal, and the person promoting it from St. Louis finally threw up his hands and folded up his stuff and left, and frustrated. But he was saying things that just weren't really entirely accurate, and the folks weren't standing for it a bit. And so I'm 99% sure Howell County Commission is going to be voting against it. Ozark County, I haven't talked to them lately, but now I'm not sure yet what they plan to do if all those counties all down through there vote no for it, about it, how they plan to make that work. There's a couple of different schools of thought that they say, well, if they don't, then they'll just run it through those counties that approve it, and skip those counties and towns that don't want to do it and stuff.
But a byway has to be contiguous
to be legitimate. Needs to
from my understanding, I mean, when Kenny Feldman got the beautification one for Highway 19, it had to be contiguous, had to be consecutive, it could not have gaps in it. Yeah. Mark Twain National Forest has pieces all over the place, so that's fine and dandy. But the state highway would have to be one contiguous road.
Right, these are all state.
It doesn't have to be one road, but it has to be contiguous. They have to touch each other. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do know this, Darrell. Now, was it Grant Wilson that said that the one in Alton, the meeting in Alton, got actually canceled because of death threats?
Well, yeah, down at Thayer, and I think it was going to be at Alton. At Ozark or Oregon County. Yeah. People down there were so hot and mad. The organizers of the thing said they were canceling the meeting. They weren't coming because they'd received death threats. And so, I don't know. I don't know. I
think they just canceled because they knew it wasn't going to go.
Well, I think he knew the people I think he pretty well had figured out that the people down there was pretty hot, and so I don't think anybody down there was threatening his life, but little tar and feathers maybe, but no life thing or anything. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do that. And I think he just kind of chickened out of even going down and facing the crowd.
But if they were going to try and go through Oregon County, they'd still have to go have a public hearing sometime. So when are you going to do it now?
Well, I think I'll have to check with them, but I know my last visit, it sounded like they were going to Oregon County Commission was going to take a vote on it this past week, I thought, from what I heard. So it's not going to fly there or Shannon, and I don't think Howell or Ozark County either. So we'll see what they do with it. I mean, they admitted they were going ahead and throwing in the towel, and we're not going to seek a national designation, but the national designation isn't as much a problem even to me, even as well, they're both a problem. They just come with property rights restrictions. It shouldn't be. So it's interesting to go see and hear who was promoting it and what their connections are and things. So,
And in all honesty, if anybody in the Ozarks, and we have auto tours that the city put together years ago with collaborating counties. They put them together. Then you can actually go see these beautiful scenic views through your car on auto tours all by yourself. You don't need somebody to tell you if you want to do it. And I thought if they wanted to do something like that, that would be fantastic to put together, say, a 3-day or 4-day tour that you could go from here, go down Highway 21, stop at Pilot Knob, put together a place that you can stop. Go down to Thayer or go down to Alton or in that area and stay there. Go over across towards Branson and then stop in one of those small towns in between. And then when you get to Branson, you can stop there. Make it like a full trip. That'd be fantastic. But not to suddenly, all of a sudden, tell people what they have to do with their property. That one's getting a little bit tight.
When you start telling people, start making restrictions on what people can or can't do with their property, you're treading on dangerous ground. And we've seen this happening more all the time. And it's just very frustrating.
It may not even be intentional, Darrell, but the thing is, they did not know because coming from St. Louis, you don't even know about property rights because most of them, you have so many covenants on your property. If you live in a condominium association, everything's laid out for you. You can't even. They just figure everybody's like that.
Well, and the presenter threw up a bunch of figures there that, well, this scenic byway in this state, it's contributed this many more dollars, tourism dollars and revenue dollars, and it's estimated this Ozark Run Scenic Byway would contribute this many extra millions of dollars. Where do you come up with them figures? I mean, I can pull numbers out of the air. There's a number floating out there above your head. Yeah, there we go. Oh, there we go. $10 million right there. Isn't that amazing? Oh, baloney. Good grief. And and the people there, they pointed out, look, we have nothing wrong with you putting brochures out that show one of the most scenic routes in the state would be if you're in St. Louis, go down 21 and catch 106 and go down 19 and come across, catch 160 and go over there. You'll not find a prettier route in the country. You got all kinds of places to stay, float, camp, fish, hunt, But as they pointed out, said people have been finding us for years. That's what they were. I'm just quoting for you. The comment said people have been finding us for years, and it said, and at some point, some of the areas down here you're trying to bring more people to are already so full and crowded they can't hardly handle anymore. Yeah. And he said, but there's nothing keeps anybody coming, and we welcome them. We'll said that we'll sell them. We'll rent them campsites, and we'll take them floating, and we'll take them hunting and fishing, and so on. They said, but no, don't sell us this bill of goods where all of a sudden, though, it tells us some things we can't do. And it said, we were here, we've been here, and we don't need somebody in St. Louis deciding they're going to do something there that restricts what we can't do, or can't.
Go back 40 or 50 years. Go back to the 60s when Branson was one of those destinations. It's small, it was quaint, it was nice, it was easy, and they went down there for the craftsmanship, the music, the stories that came out of that area. And then, of course, the Beverly Hillbillies came out, and they talked about Branson, and they talked about the Ozark Hills. And people, of course, Beverly Hillbillies, the number one show in country, made more people go. All of a sudden, Branson, they couldn't handle it.
At that time, Silver Dollar City and the Bald Knobbers and Presley was the three, and Shepherd of the Hills, your 3 or 4 destination things. Exactly. And nothing, not knocking it. No. We go down there, but we were down there vacationing here a while back, but we actually stayed across the Taney-Como on the Hollister side at a little resort. Oh, shoot. Can't even think of the name of it now. But anyway, a little cabin on the lake. You'd never know where we were at that there's all of that mess. We don't go, I go down there necessarily sometimes. And we go down there and sometimes go up on the strip. We did go around the dam and crossed the dam, went up and caught Highway 76 on the west end. And, it was amazing, Stan, to be up there after school started. That was on a Tuesday morning when we were down there, and to go up there catch Highway 76 on that west end, and in a matter of about 10 minutes, had driven all the way down 76, all the way back down to 65 to go back to over to Hollister, back Trout Hollow Lodge. That's where we stayed over on the Hollister side, up above College of the Ozarks on Taneycomo. Done a little fishing, went down into Arkansas. But at any rate, it was just different. But when you're down there during a major part of the summer, as you know, it's nothing that compares with what it was, as you say, back in the days before it became the tourist mecca.
And while you were down there, you
that's-
did notice that they moved Highway 76.
Mhm.
It's no longer.
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah.
no longer on the strip area, and now they moved it out the Ozark High Road.
Yeah.
Because there was too much traffic, and the people would not. You know, when they always took their GPS, it always said take Highway 76. Well, then they'd get down there to Branson, and you're sitting for 2 hours on 76 just to try to get to West Branson.
Yep.
So they bypassed that. So they moved it right out as you're coming out of the other side across from the lake. Now you go up the side road, go up 65 to 76 on the Ozark High Road, come back down around Silver Dollar City.
Yep. Loop back around.
So they totally changed that, and nobody was notified.
Yep.
Nobody.
Yep.
The MoDOT did that on their own, and I thought, how the heck can you do that? Wouldn't you have to get the vote of Branson, the city of Branson, to do that? Wouldn't you think? I would think, because you change the whole designation of the Highway 76. Now what do you call it? What's the road going to be called?
Yeah. I don't know. It was just amazing to me. It's been a long time since we'd been down there in late September, but we did enjoy a little bit more peace and quiet over there on the Hollister side of the lake and all the amenities. We went down and ate supper one night down there at the White River Boathouse, and great evening, great time. And but it's if you don't really care for the crowds that much, I'd advise you go sometime in September down there and enjoy the. Now a lot of the attractions and shows are just about shut down during the week. They'll open back up, I guess, for the weekends and
If
Friday,
you just
Saturday.
want to go for quietness, go January, February when all the shows are actually down, and there's it's not very crowded.
Now the flip of that, there's plenty of places right here in
I'm
right
just
here
saying,
within
but
50
if you want
miles
to
of
go to
Salem
Branson
too.
and just take a look around,
Yep.
without
Yep.
traffic and things. January,
There's a lot of the
February's
shows
great
are still
time.
going on all through September and on through the fall and winter too. So
But-
it's a good time. But yeah, it just changes everything. But at any rate, I see there's a lot of problems and all, and it just frustrates me. I think this is a very nice guy who put the program on, who's really worked hard on this. I think he's as nice a guy as he can be. I think he's a little misguided or misunderstands what the impact could be for landowners just because of the way the legislation reads. He didn't write the legislation. It is what it is. But I think he needs to understand more if you're going to propose this. Then it does come with these things, and this is why. I mean, you're talking about people's homes and their livelihood. People have been here, as one guy said Tuesday down at the meeting I was at. His family's been there for 5 or 6 generations now down there, and he really resents more and more and more government trying to do things that makes it harder for him to stay and do what they've done.
But as I mentioned, though, Darrell, if he's coming out of St. Louis, this guy's out of Baldwin. When they sign off on these things, they give up their property rights. They just do. Condominium associations, your property. If you get into an organization, covenants and subdivisions, you give up your property rights then and there. Mm-hmm. And so they're used to doing that. You start coming down to areas where people have 500 or 600 acres, and you want them to fall in the same category as you are for your 60 by 80 lot. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that. And I came out of St. Louis. It took me a while when I remember coming down here, and really the Bentons really straightened me out real quick because I was like, what is the big deal? And then and then when they got me one-on-one and explained, you're missing the point. And the point wasn't that I didn't believe in property rights. I did, but I didn't understand the implications that happen when they take your land. It's not the property rights, it's the land. They're telling you what to do with your land.
Right.
And I'm thinking, no, wait a minute. Now, you're right. And it took a while to sink in. Once I found out, man, there's nothing that they can. And that's why when I read these things, I look for those key words, like intrinsic, off view and in view and off view. Oh, come on.
That's too vague. Yeah, that's too vague, and then that opens the door.
You bet it does.
And again, they can take your property without having the title to it, but if they impact your ability to use your property, generate revenue from your property, same as some other person,
Sure.
and yet if they impact your ability to do that, yet still say, oh, by the way, though, you keep paying your property taxes, though, or we will take your property. Nope, you know, you got to draw a line somewhere.
Sure,
People,
and other
people
things,
have had enough.
And other things that we've seen out there, not so much in Missouri, but not too far away in Missouri, but it's kind of touched here before, is water rights. And if they take water rights off your property becomes useless. What value does your property have? Well, who's going to buy that property? I guarantee you, who's going to buy it? Federal government's going to take it, or somebody in the government's going to take that property. And that's so.
Or some large non-governmental entity that gets a huge tax break.
Sure, some big corporation
by acquiring property for conservation easements and some different deals there. You run into some strange things there. So anyway, I was going to mention one other thing. We did discuss a contract from the Missouri Department of Agriculture for re-monumentation of survey corners. That's something that they do keep going every year. They did offer a contract to re-monument, you know, and basically have a surveyor come in and mark and remark with permanent markers in the ground for 10 corners in the county, and that they will pay up to $350 they'll pay $350 per corner that we'd have re-monumented. So
and it's very important to have those.
Yes, it is. When you're going to have property surveyed, they've got to go to an established corner to start a survey. So I will be visiting with our county surveyor, Michelle Elwood, on that, and I feel sure we'll be proceeding with that. So
very good.
Anyway, so.
Busy week, busy couple of weeks right after Labor Day. After you're short one day in meetings too.
Yeah.
You know, but it's been very busy.
Well, there was one meeting I wasn't at as we were trying to get a little bit of vacation in, and I say a little bit. Yep, left on Monday, back on Thursday afternoon. So rather short, but that's all right. We enjoyed it.
Day here, day there. Sometimes that's all you need. But sometimes
always,
a little longer be better.
But always a lot of work going on, things happening. So
absolutely. Well, we want to thank Darrell for coming in, spending his time with us. And, of course, don't forget, we stream these programs. They are available online after the fact. If you miss part of the show, say, wait a minute, they talked about something. I missed that. You want to go back and listen to it, you're more than welcome to do so. We do have it on Facebook now, as well as on our Twitch, and it will be on YouTube in a day or two, or at least by Monday. We know that. And so if you hear something or didn't hear something or thought you heard something, you always go back and check it. If you missed the whole program, you want to catch it, you can do that too. And we always thank Darrell for coming in. This is not a free program. He does pay for this program out of his own pocket, no county dollars.
Write a check every month, don't I?
Every month. And like clockwork you've been doing. That's great. We love it.
Melba comes in and squeezes it out of me one way or another.
And no county funds also go to this. And, of course, we do appreciate the in-depthness he gives us on some of these things, like those recycling grants. You may not even have any idea how that even happens. And so it's good to know those things. And also the meetings you cannot attend that he does attend, courtesy of it, even that background information about the Department of Revenue and how all that works. So there's just a lot of information you can't get in a newspaper. We can't get on the radio, that kind of detail. You're only going to get that from one guy, and that's the guy sitting in the chair right there, Mr. Darrell Skiles.
Thank you, Stan. I do appreciate the opportunity. I hope folks heard a little bit of information they didn't know and filled in some details. I do appreciate the chance, though, and opportunity. And it's been a busy time, and it's a beautiful time to be here in Salem and Dink County. So we'll be back here in a couple of weeks, I guess.
3 weeks.
Be 3 weeks, because we're on the air here every first and third Friday morning of the month. So it's going to be what, Stan? Going to be October 7th. October 7th, we'll be back on the air. But at any rate, I do appreciate comments. Folks periodically tell me mention something they heard or commented. We might have a special guest with us here on the radio next time we're on, but we'll see how that works out. But until then, I do hope everyone will be safe, happy, healthy, and God bless each and every one of you. We'll leave you with this.